Okay, get this started. Delta, Boringa, Mansworth. Good morning, good afternoon. Hope you are well. Ooh. So, I need to set up two spaces. I need to have a workspace and a home workspace. Be much more productive. Okay. Oh, should autocorrect. So I am working with a glint of sun in my eye. You took the corporate Claude training. Okay, how'd that go? Are you now a Claude expert? Can you educate us? Uh, what was the biggest thing? Okay, plan. Um, as in plan mode, as in using the plan mode, or is that separate? Claude MD file should be at every level of directory structure. Oof, that seems rough. Yeah, you can do in CLI. You can do Shift Tab as well to navigate through and get to plan mode. Yeah, auto mode is scary though. Yeah, yeah. Think of your tokens though. I'm trying a new camera today, by the way. This is an OBS bot camera, an OBS bot Lite 2 or 2 Lite. So my angle is different. Normally my camera's up there, but I'm trying a 4K camera. So okay. So what have I done in the last couple of days? So speaking of Claude, I went through um, the. I started adding the features for adding tasks to releases. So when you are building a release, you can look for the tasks, and you'll be able to look for the tasks by the initiative or the deliverable or the individual requirements. That's the goal. You'll be able to search for them by what you need. You also, if you know the task numbers, you'll be able to use them. I'm still debating whether I want to put identifiers on requirements. I probably will end up with requirement identifiers, but they don't have um, uh, they don't have that would be literally rec, one, etc. Because there's no project attached to the requirement exactly. So I started, adjust, refactor this, adjust namespaces. Yeah, I figured it did. I started going through um, building out what it means to have tasks associated to a release. And initially I thought, well, hold on, then the task needs to be attached to the release. So I need to say when I register a task with a release, I need to say, hey, task, you have this release identifier now, and then release, you have, this. But again, there's benefit of using the AI to have these not discussions, but more like thought checking moments. I'm finding that very useful. And again, this would be the sort of stuff that um, I would ask a team, right? I would talk to about a team. I'd be thinking, well, where's this data go and live? What are we doing with this? So that there's no checks in place for that. There's literally like a little gap in my window that I can't avoid the sun there. So I gotta be careful. But anyway, so yeah, I'm using it I'm getting a lot of benefit from helping it check my ideas. So in this case, I've said, well, hold on, I think I want to attach the release ID to the task. And it's like, well, no, that's not really what you want to do. You want to the task is associated with the release, not the release associated with the task. So realistically, all you need to do is do that in the release side of things. So with a bit of back and forth, ended up with, okay, well, yeah, assign tasks to release. So this handler, this endpoint, will allow me to capture a list of tasks and a release and associate them. So then I'm like, well, again, further discussion. Well, now I want to set a bunch of tasks, but is that the right thing to do in a one by one? And when the domain event is basically like a task was associated. And going through that, it was like, well, it's kind of an atomic action assigning a task to a release. So do that in a loop. But, well, where do we do that? It's like, well, in the endpoint, you just loop through the tasks that you passed in and do it that way. No, that doesn't feel right. It feels like I'm putting too much behavior. Tasks might not map to a release at all. Yes, they do. Yeah. The point was that releases don't map to tasks. You don't associate the release to the task. You associate the task to the release. That was the way of thinking about it, which is true, right? The task has no bearing. The release has no bearing on the task. The task has a bearing on the release. Morning, Mojo. Yeah, they could be. Why wouldn't they have anything to do with the release? That's exactly what release is, isn't it? A bunch of developer tasks, a bunch of technical tasks lumped together to form a release. A release isn't a bunch of stories. Right, but it might not be a release. It can still be a developer task and not be associated to a release. Not all tasks have to go into a release. That's the point, right? Right. Gotcha. Yeah. Sorry. Yes. I misread what you wrote. Because the way I was thinking there. Nope. No, that was fine. That was right. Yeah, tasks. Not all tasks will map to a release. Yes, that's where we are. A task can just sit out there and be completed, and I've already kind of gone through that exploration with the conversation there. So, yeah, a task could be very technical. Those very specific, but I think it's the wording. So, developer tasks, all tasks are developer tasks in this system, right? All tasks are created, or rather, all tasks are implementation teams focus. They're not. That could be DevOps, that could be DBAs, that could be developers, right? App developers. They're all tasks. So yeah, a task like from a DBA could be to add an index onto a database in production. that's not in part of a release, right? But it still should be tracked as a task. So yeah, you are 100% correct. Not all tasks map to a release. My apologies for the misunderstanding. So anyway, yeah, the assigned task to release. So I'm like, well, hold on. If I do that on a singular basis, how do I loop through it? It's like, do it in the endpoint. I'm like, but that's putting behavior in the endpoint. That's kind of a business reason. And also, if I do it one by one, then when I assign a task, I am going to add this domain event. If I do it one by one, then I'm going to publish 10 different messages to Kafka if I do 10 tasks. So that's really wasteful if all I need to do is say, hey, the release changed, by the way. Now, a task being assigned to a release, I might want to react to. So that's fine as an event. But how do I do that? So I started talking through it more, and it's like, well, just create a use case. Should you be mapping the higher level item to release instead? No, because you could have a bunch of functionality that gets released as part of a release, and then more functionality that finishes up that requirement is in a subsequent release. And that's one of our problems, right? Everything mapping, well, under the requirement. But you could have certain elements of a requirement released before, and you need to know where those things sit, right? Initiative, deliverable, requirement, task. Again, avoiding the word story. So deliverables have requirements, requirements have tasks. But the tasks are pieces of work. So anyway, I went back and forth, and it says, well, just create a use case and send it as a mediator. I was like, I don't like that idea. So then I gave it my use case stuff and validated that piece out. Yes. One to many requirements, one to many tasks per requirement. Yeah. It might align one to one. You might end up releasing by requirement, but that's a choice. If you need any work released ahead of time, you've got to track that, right? If it doesn't fit neatly, and that's always a problem. So yeah. So anyway, I ended up with using my use case stuff again, and now it's like, oh yeah, that works. So now I can loop through, assign the tasks in here, and yeah, it's kind of a mediator. It's sans mediator, but it does give me the ability to do the workflow, and then we can just publish the task, publish that the release was updated, which publishes the event once for that. There could be some tasks in there that aren't fully created for the requirement. Yes. Yeah. You could miss some tasks. You could realize that as part of the release, you've got extra tasks to do to meet this requirement. There's all manner of things that could change, but it would be good to know, hey, by the way, 5 of these things are in a release, and that release is currently sat on staging, or that release is currently sat in production, right? So you can see at the requirement level where those tasks sit, so you know. You could check all tasks are completed, and then once they're all done, prompt the user. I'm gonna avoid prompting the user in that case, but yeah, you could do. What I'm going to do is add extra levels of clarity around the task. So like again, that's why I introduced the idea of kind of related tasks. So if you pull a task into a release and there's other tasks that it's related to, it will warn you and say, by the way, these other tasks aren't completed. If you choose to go ahead, that's on you, right? A release is just a concept, not an actual gate. We had a case lately where all tasks got completed, but no requirement was missed. It happens, and no amount of software is going to prevent that from happening, right? Um, but yeah, is why I'm going to put in the GitHub integration so that you can see, oh, this is actually not merged into whatever branch you expect it to be merged into. There's PRs outstanding for this task. So if you pull it into a release and there's PRs outstanding, then it'll warn you. By the way, this hasn't been PR'd yet, so it's really not a candidate for release. That's kind of my initial take on that. How's how I'm going to achieve that. But ultimately, the releases are kind of a grouping concept, and you'll be able to let's do this. You'll be able to associate many tasks, and potentially you could align to a requirement. But you'll be able to associate many tasks with a release, and not all requirements will be met by by a single release. Yeah, nothing's really going to prevent the missed requirements, right? That's why my heavy promotion on conversation ahead of time, right, is why visibility into, oh, by the way, these things are coming. You might want to review them. They've been marked as ready for review. You might not have had a notification or on a meeting to discuss them yet, but they're there, visible, and these are the things that you can now review. So you go in here and you can have a look at the requirements. You can ask questions. You'll be able to ask questions, etc. Push back on these things, and then as you and your team start to kind of plan them out, you'll be able to add the tasks. So the idea is just early visibility into what is coming. It's why the review date is there, so that PMs can kind of keep things in focus and keep them in the site, so that they can actually, plan properly. It's why the initiatives are there with will have the status of things on it, so that from a management perspective, you can see if things are moving. And if they're not, you can call it out. That's the entire point. So, yeah. I think of navigation at some point. Yeah. We did all these update task, implement unique reference. We did all these pieces. Soft lock scope control, release state, deployment status tracking. Yeah, these are all things I actually worked out talking through with it. But we're just moving ahead, building things. So I'll move this over to a list screen, the same as the others, figuring what's coming next. This makes more sense rather than a table. So we're going to experiment with this a little bit more. I did create a second release the other day, but it didn't go through. That's what I was looking at the other day. So I have 2 releases here, I believe. Yes. And I have an outbox. Do I have an outbox message for the release created? Yes, I do. No. What do I do? Yeah. That's 80D. That one. That's the Q2. So I didn't create the second one. Awesome. But I created the second one. F4. It's fine. Notification out bots. Yeah, I don't get that. I never got that second release created. Interesting. So we can delete that one because that one never worked. We can go and try and create another one. See what happens. Create a release. This is freeform. You know, again, I would probably aim for, you know, every 2 to 3 week delivery windows, if I could, at the most. September 19th. Great. Interesting. That's kind of interesting. Huh. I think you should create a code chores skill. Code chores is in. I don't know if I've created any skills yet. No. What's the difference between a skill? What does a skill do? That could be dangerous, though. That could be dangerous. You got to be careful how you do that because unused variables, especially in languages like C Sharp, where you could have invocable, like there's a lot of context involved in figuring out whether a variable is truly used. Like a lot of my code, if I did a remove unused variables, it delete a lot of my code because it's called dynamically. It's not actually used in the code, but it is called at runtime. So it has to have that knowledge. And that's always, yeah. Did that actually create the release though? What? How did you get past that? But let's the LLM know what it can do with specific instructions like the spine and the butt shelf, and it goes the knowledge of how to do that prompt. Right. So you can put actual pieces in there. Yeah. Jones, good afternoon. Why didn't you hit that? But you did. Oh no. Did I have the breakpoint there? No, I didn't have the breakpoint. The wrong one. Right? Question myself now. Q4. Alan's going to be the owner of that. So the idea of the owner is someone who's going to manage that cycle, right? So you would assign a different development manager or someone else to manage it. so that they're in charge of making sure that's coordinated. They're coordinators, right? They're not, but they own that release. It's so that if there's a question on that release, we know who to talk to. It's not just out there in the dark. Why are you not hitting breakpoints? Why do I only ever get one project started now? But the system works. You start that. The Aspire plugin being out of date was possibly it. But it does look like it's a thing. Um, Interesting. It has been a thing. Edit. Make sure there's no settings I'm missing that they've updated. No. Aspire app host. App settings. No. I don't see anything saying, hey, only start. I have been contemplating what it looks like to move all the configuration, all the supporting pieces into this app host. It does mean that the application becomes self-contained. So move like the Kafka and stuff in there. But the challenge with that is if you do that and then we have Control Tower. Control Tower is not part of Liquid Sky. That and they share resources. That's the challenge. Although you should rarely be running both on the same machine. Let's see if that does anything different. Now I've updated the plugin. I don't think it should though. It's only starting the one app host, right? Now, if I open up app host if I open up the actual dashboard, he says easily. Oh, there we go. It's starting them now. There you go. It was the plugin. And there's a new version available. Awesome. But it is starting them all now. That's a good sign. Okay, so planning, features, releases, create. Breakpoint there. Come on. Don't like that. Q1 2027. Buttley's got that one. March 16th. Hit the breakpoint, please. There we go. Okay. That I know about. Baby, hello. How you doing? This goes in here. Okay. Release create. So this is happening. Did I remove the event? No. No, it's right there. Okay, so everything's the point, the entire point, the design of the code is meant that the very small actions, they're not meant to be long. As Q1 2027 created. There we go. It created these. Oh, there we go. We got it. Okay, which one's this one? Q1 2027. Okay. So this one's there and this one's there. Awesome. Okay. Two of them should be there. One. Oh no, they're all there now. So these did make it. Okay. No idea why that failed the other day. Awesome. Just what you need. Okay, so we're going to go back to the Figma reference. And we are going to now go into this definition screen. And what we're going to do is we're going to implement that in here. So when you click in here, you get the you get that. So um, now a lot of this can probably be done on the client. Um, to the releases. Someone just ran a stop sign at the end of the street. I got a big beep. Um, I don't like bringing up the prompt all the time on the screen. I also don't like reading it out at the same time. The funny thing is, if I'm not streaming, I probably do read it out more. But so I apologize for the awkward me looking down and typing. I'm just telling it to basically what I'm saying is, hey, go ahead and introduce this screen. So navigate down into the screen. However, don't go any further, right? So I'm just saying, hey, use this reference, navigate into the screen, and we'll work on the rest in a minute. So the idea here, by the way, is you'll be able to say where this release is deployed. So it's not deployed yet, right? Because this is just an idea. So if we've got it deployed to a development server, we can say this is deployed to the development server, staging, UAT, production, right? So you'll be able to say that. These right now are not configurable because they're a status. I've yet to address how I'm going to implement that as a configurable thing or whether I want to. Being opinionated can't hurt, right? And this is the phase. So moving it to a stabilizing, that will be an action, right? Mark is released, right? So you'll be able to cycle it through the phases. And then once you get to the released, you can't add anything, etc. will be the behavior. The individual tasks, they're showing what initiative or what piece of the system they're from, the developer working on them, what status they're in, and and that's kind of that design. I really like this style, but I'm not willing to go and try and pull apart my my entire application to get this more colorful version in at this point. Funny, the background chair removal on this is not working as well. Did I do? Wonder how this works now with this. That's still kind of rough. Okay. So that's still churning away. I'll plan this in phases. Let me start by exploring the current release implementation and the Figma reference in parallel. So it's going off working on that. One thing, again, I was doing the other day is this assigned tasks. Creating these workflows always felt like a cheat to me, because it felt like, well, hold on, it's not a. So the general rule is with a mediator, from the mediator guidance, is a handler shouldn't be invoking other handlers. That's kind of the way they approach that. I do break that. I violate that in terms of the acquire stuff. And I assume that the reasoning there is something to do with the cascading effect of failure. The handler has a job to do. If you have other handlers invoked, then it kind of gets messy. Um, so it is what it is. So this workflow or use case approach felt like a hack when I wrote it, but it felt like the good middle ground of, okay, I'm being explicit about this is different. So when Claude yesterday in going back and forth over things was like, oh, you should create a use case and just use an I request. And I was like, oh, that feels horrible because that isn't the mediator guidance that. And again, this is in Claude on my instructions for the project, so it's told to push back on ideas and concepts, etc. But I got down to, hey, well, what about this use case design that I had previously used? It's like, yeah, that works. That's exactly what you're doing. And it makes sense because this event I don't want to publish per task being assigned, but I do want to be able to assign individual tasks to the release. Now, I might change this later because batch assignment is it's something that a database can do, right? This is now going to do insert, 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 right, rather than one insert with many parameters. So but it does make sense from a behavioral standpoint that I get to know individual tasks being assigned, so I can react to that if I need to, and then I can say, oh yeah, the release changed. And again, it doesn't matter whether people agree whether it's a good idea or not. What matters is I understand how it's working. We need to introduce the ability to add tasks to releases. The first step, yeah, is purely scaffolding. Make a release card clickable. Okay, so it gets the job. New route, new release detail. Make the existing release card a router link so clicking navigates to the detail. Detail screen shows breadcrumb, header. I don't know about breadcrumb, but we'll find out. Out of scope. All the extra pieces. Yeah. Yep, that works. So now this is going to start implementing this navigation here. We'll see where we go. This is still the most challenging moment is when it's doing something and I don't have anything to do or anything to talk about because I'm working in this code, right? So I can't really go and start making changes here at the same time as it's going to be changing things in the UI side of things. So if I stop this running to work on something, this will fail. It gets there, and then this will get stuck if it's actually looking for changes. Claude will get stuck. Sorry, I say this, and that's not even on the screen. So just create the components. It's making them router links. It's working. So from here, once I've got this kind of wired up, then on the view side of things, I need to go and start adding those concepts. So I do have in the database, I do have the tables planned out already. Views. He says he has it, but he doesn't have it. No. Do I not have it? Interesting. And the release task assignment in the planning side and on the view side, release task assignment. Okay, so it is there, just haven't refreshed. There you go. Release task assignments. So release ID, task ID, assigned by, assigned at. Important to know who assigned it, right? Because I'm not going to say that only the owner of the release can add it. But yeah, and actually, while I'm doing this, I can be doing other things. Foundation, shared kernel. No, it's in permissions on this side. Identity. So assign task to release is a permission that can be set. So I can actually go in here and go to users and go to Alan, assign task to release. Alan now has that permission. Uh-oh. So I do have two agents attached to this project. I have an Angular signals specific one and an architectural agent. So every time I make any level of changes to the actual features or the components, both of those kick in and review and do their own work. So the Angular signals architect jumped in and the architect and identified that we've got duplicate badges and highlighted that the data could be stale. We've got duplicated badge rules, so we remove them. Interesting. These will probably change. I think basically it might dictate that square is state and circular is phase. Oh, it's checking it. You don't have permissions to log in, so that's going to be interesting that that's doing that way. It gave. I think I'd have to give it instructions on how to log in. Well, I don't know if it could control the Auth0 window. So basically, it gave up on trying to do that. But this should now navigate. There we go. We have the header. We have the releases. Task management for releases coming soon. So we have a layout to work with. Okay, cool. So let's do a commit there. Release detail. View with breadcrumb. And how far are we on this one? This has got a few more changes. Yeah, release took a little while. Yeah, that is. I'm going with the happy path right this second. I'm going with the there's no tasks associated, therefore we can add them. If you try and add the same task again, it will. I think it actually would fail because I think I have a unique constraint. No, maybe not. Yeah. Oh, there's a constraint on the primary key, but there's no. Maybe not. There we go. Yeah, there is a unique constraint, so it will blow up if I try and add it. So, or an index, unique index. Interesting. So if I try and add the same task for a release, it will explode on me. So I should prevent it in code to avoid that risk. Is my opinion. Okay, so let's go and so I think at this point we need to figure out what adding a task is. So the challenge here is actually let's start with just simple searching tasks. Let's not go deeper. I think that stops us from going a little bit too overboard right this second. Interesting that this is the choice of how to do it, but yeah. Okay, now time to move on to adding tasks to releases. As before, for the Figma reference, um, so I'm going to do the UI side of this first, and then I'm going to go and make the back side of the code work. Otherwise, what's going to happen is I'm going to add a task. It's going to associate that task with the release, and we're never going to see it again because there's going to be no pieces on the other side to actually handle that. Introduce an add task button. So I just get the wire up of this working to make sure I'm happy with it, and then we'll go and do that code. Add task button. This will show the design, including the search and a. Now I think on the on the on that thing over here, I'm convinced I was in the actual code there. In contents. Let's go here. Okay, so if we have a task, if we do requirement title, and I don't think initiative, yeah. That's a funky one. I'm not sure I want to do this search because we don't know the difference between. I think this search is a little bit more complicated in terms of what we're actually looking for because I think the Sully, how you doing? Um, just searching on the title wouldn't give us the right thing. So yeah. Apex, good morning. Hope you're well. I did lurk in yours and Alan streams yesterday, but I did not say hello. Or was it yesterday or Tuesday? When did you stream? I didn't get a chance to say hello though. I think it was Tuesday, right? Yeah. So apologies for not saying hello. You were playing Siege. Uh, yeah. So This will show the call. Yeah, so I think what we'll do for right the second is we'll just do a basic task filter. Now, title and ID or title and reference is perfectly fine. This will show the cars, including search and multi-select. Search should be for reference. Title the task. We don't need to filter this at all. Let me see how much it gets off that one. So just said implement the call out as with the thing. So when we go in here now, we should see an add tasks button, and that will do the call out and give us the ability to search the tasks. Once we get that working, I'm going to have to do the back end side of things. So basically, I'm going to have to change the event. So in Foundation, we have the messaging events integration, and there's the release integration event. We're now going to have to add associated tasks to this. Assigned, did I call it? Let's use this assignment. So yeah, public enumerable period assigned tasks. And then on the other side, on releases, we now want to change the application publisher release to include those. Now the challenge there is, this is one of the things I don't like. Doing it this way, it relies upon me. So if I go to subscribers and do release created, right, it relies upon me using the right spec, so I include those tasks. I think that can be covered with an architectural test. Like you've not used the right type. Maybe it could be covered with an architectural test, maybe not. But that relies upon that. So that goes after deployment state. No, it doesn't. It's associated data. Oh, they're in different orders anyway, so it doesn't matter. Hi, Phils, how you doing? Yeah, it's fine. Release publisher. So we do this assign tasks equals release dot tasks dot select T goes to T task identifier. I think that's how I do it in other things. Yep. And there we go. So now when I create a release or update a release, we will get the assigned tasks passed that way. Welcome in, iFels. I didn't realize you hadn't been in here before. I don't see first time chat up on the prompter. I just glanced across. So not been in here before. What I'm working on is Kaizu, which is my project management and planning application. It is focused on trying to get to release of software. So trying to gather requirements properly, make sure the right questions are asked, increase visibility, and simplify delivery. And as always, if you are new in the stream, you are more than welcome to ask any questions. If you have any opinions on what I'm doing, if you feel I'm wrong or it just won't work, that is perfectly fine. I'm happy to have a talk about it. Well, I'm honoured then. But what I'm waiting on right now is I'm waiting on the robot to go ahead and create. I mean, a lot of interference on this mouse recently. This is weird. Get the robot to create the call out here for this button. We're going to add a add task button in here and then pop out this. And this will allow me to start searching for tasks. I've got the assign tasks piece wired up, so we can definitely we can actually pass it. But until I restart and get the integration event changed, nothing will work there. We also now need to start building out the view side of things. So the downside to designing software like this is that everything's small, but there's a lot more places to touch on the workflow. So if I were developing this in two teams, then and one team had the release management side and one team had the view management side, I could say, oh, by the way, a new field is going to come in this event. They can go off and work on that in parallel, assuming that event will be there, and then I can work on my stuff. And I think the right way to do that would be to update the Kafka schema, which is a whole different challenge that I've yet to solve. So I've kind of mixed how I tackle some of these things. Sometimes I've tackled everything in one go here. Sometimes I've tackled everything. I've kind of coordinated the events in here. Again, this is a receiver, not a handler. So again, update release has, just capture the release. Whereas I can say, like update team and update team associated projects. This is separate. So we're going to do the same thing. So we're going to create a new class, update release associated tasks, public record command. This is going to be the GUID release identifier, and then GUID enumerable GUID of task identifiers. I command. Nope. You gotta be careful because it always wants to use system input. I command, which is a Windows form style interface, or Windows a WPF style interface for buttons. So we are going to do public class handler, and this is going to be an I repository of we're going to need to create the thing. I command handler of command. Okay, there you go. So it should have done this part now. Add tasks. um, hmm. What that's done is loaded all the tasks that are currently available in my Signal store. Which is an interesting. Should it do that? Or do I want to search? So if I do, why do you keep doing that? If I do DB4, that's DB4. If I do functional, that's searching that. Yeah. Display. Yeah. Hi, Darren. How are you doing? Um, doing good. How about yourself? How are things? Okay, so we're going to leave that as is for now. Right now, we're not going to panic too much about that behavior, but we should be able to assign tasks. Yeah. Okay. Uh, provide. Now, again, what that's doing is that's loading in every task that I've got in the Signal store, which might not be what I want to do. So I would imagine that's not searching against tasks on the back end. We'll validate that afterwards. I don't know. We'll validate that now before I go too far here. Yeah, it's doing the store. So only what's in my Signal store is it finding, which should be valid, but we're going to use that as a learning opportunity later. Very well. Final week before uni submission, so kind of crunching to get it all done. Oof. Rather you than me. Okay. So to make this work properly, I do need to implement the back the view side of the house, right? Um, and again, that's what I'm saying. Like every single thing, every single action I take in this system, the trade off for the independence is the that I have to apply changes to more areas. So a create of a data table is not just one create; it's at least two, probably more in the long term, and all the associated objects. But again, if you're building this style system, you wouldn't really be doing it as a solo dev. So it's not fair. It's like me applying how I work to my own tool doesn't fit because I'm not the target audience of my own tool. So if we go to entities, we need to create release task assignment. And this is going to be a simple table, isn't it? So it's going to have public int ID, how typing works. I've been doing it for a few years. Public int release ID, public int task ID, public int assigned by user ID, and public date time assigned at. I'm not going to worry about the view side right this second. I want to capture this data at the very least, then the view can come afterwards. So this is going to be release task assignment. This is not. That's not good. That's not good. This is wrong. It's not just an array of GUIDs. It's not just an array of GUIDs. So on the events, on the integration event, this is not just a GUID. Public class assigned task, public GUID task identifier, public GUID assigned by identifier, bit redundant, date time, assigned at, and then this is a list of assigned task. I should have seen that before. So now when we do the release publisher, that's not just that, that's select new assigned task, and then equals t dot task identifier, assigned at equals t dot assigned by user identifier. Make it consistent. So that's a very important distinction. I'm attaching additional content. It's not just a list of IDs. It matters who attached it, because in this case, the owner of the release would want to see, oh, someone added something into the release, and they'd be told, hey, the release was changed. That's the kind of the point of the system overall, is that they'd be told, oh, by the way, Jeff assigned 2 tasks to this release. And again, transparency, visibility, without, I suppose it's kind of forced communication. Basically saying, hey, someone changed this. You probably want to talk to them if you didn't know about it. So, yeah. So on this side, release task assignment, that captures everything it needs. In here now, this can't be that, which means I need to create a DTO. That public class task information, actually public record, GUID task identifier, GUID assigned by user identifier, date time assigned on, and then this becomes that. Really, task. I'm not going to make it abstract. Why would I make it abstract? I'm going to create an instance of it in a second. So the concept there is that now when I'm doing the, not there, here, receiver, I've got a release. I can now say await, well, actually, if event dot assign tasks dot what do I like about that? Oh, you're going to let me actually get away with that? Okay, normally you can tell me the count. So if there are any assigned tasks, await sender.send new update release associated tasks dot command. This is going to read weird, but we'll be fine. Event dot release release. So again, what we're going to do here is we're going to pass the identifier. We're not going to get the ID back from this. I'm not starting to chain these together, right? I could go and say, when you've got the update release, give me back the ID of it, so then I have it for anything else. But I don't want to do that because I don't want to build that dependency into that process. And this is going to be update release associated task dot command dot task information. It's fine. event dot assign task dot select at goes to new at dot task identifier at dot assign by at dot assign that. And it ain't very pretty, but it works. So now we've got we're creating a nested DTO, but it's very specific to this case. It's fine. I'll stop doing that. So now we have enough information. We can, for each var task in command.tasks, oh, this is one of those cases I talked about earlier on, in that I have to violate that design guidance of you should not nest handle commands inside of extra handlers, right? The mediator advice is you shouldn't use mediator within the mediator, but it's sometimes I've found it's unavoidable. So var release ID equals sender.send await async sender.send, and this is going to be a new acquire release. Ooh, we don't have that yet. Dot command, and that's going to be a command dot acquire is create if not exist. Now in this instance, this can't, because I'm treating this as atomic. I know that I'm only going to invoke this when I've actually updated the release. So in theory, I can make this an acquire. I don't need to make this an acquire. I can actually make this a specification. Do I have that pattern though in here? I don't think I do. Pretty much sure I go full. I do associated release. Well, let's try it that way. Let's do it that way actually, because the acquire's heavy-handed. Spec specification release. And again, here I'm working with the right side of this, the view. I'm storing the data, so this is not the view side of entities. My view naming is extremely confusing. Actually, I don't need to say the word release there because it's kind of obvious what it is. A release by identifier, where r.identifier equals identifier. That's it. That's our query. So now here we don't need to do that. We just need to do release by identifier spec, which gives us the release. If for whatever reason we don't get that, I want this to blow up. I'm just going to throw an exception. That should never happen. It's just guard to say, like, because if we get into this code, it's going to make it confusing. But if this is nowhere explicitly saying just blow up, So now this is going to be a little different because we're going to have to acquire task ID, acquire the user ID. I'm not. Well, let me do this. Var task ID equals await sender.send new acquire task dot command task dot task identifier user ID equals await sender.send new acquire user command task dot assigned by user identifier. So that converts the GUID to the internal ID of the tables in this system. This provides for eventual consistency in terms of, or data integrity more than anything. If for whatever reason on the UI side of things we got a user ID, but we're hitting this piece of the system, it will kind of self-heal. It'll create the records necessary. Now, in 99.9% of the cases, this doesn't actually do very much. But it's a pattern that I like to have there for consistency when I'm making sure that, this is create if not exists. And it'll dummy out the record. There is a potential you could have this side of the system receiving events out of sync. And like, if I created something and then I assign something on the client and that create hasn't quite hit here, but this update hits before that create, the system would collapse on itself, right? So this is a fail-safe. The reality is because I'm driving everything off view, I shouldn't be able to see something that doesn't exist yet. So why would I be able to assign it? So realistically, this should just be a straight up conversion. But yeah, there are instances where it can't, so you got to allow for it. This I could probably cache. The tasks will be unique every time, but the user, I could probably get a list of the user IDs beforehand. So if there's only one, we only call this once. We'll make that optimization later. And then we're going to do await repository add async. Thanks for the look, Apex. We're almost done, sadly. Release task assignment. This is going to be task ID equals. That's important. Assigned by user ID is user ID. And tell me task ID is long. Yeah, it's a long. So that changes that somewhat. Oh no, I've got it as a. That's my bad. Long. There'll be many, many, many tasks. I don't know why I made it long, but it's fine. They can fit in an int. I highly doubt the system's going to receive 3 billion. But hey, never mind. Across multiple customers, that could be a lot, right? So it's actually not that ridiculous. Assigned that equals task dot assigned that. Assigned on. Let's make that consistent. So in theory, now that will do exactly what it should do, what it needs to do, which will be to capture the fact that we've got the tasks. Again, we're not dealing with the view side. However, it has come that time where I must. Oh, turn unit dot. That's fine. Joy. Uh, Let's all start. Look at that build. So at this point now, when a release gets updated, it should publish the information. Obviously, we're not wired up those tasks yet, but we're getting there. We can now define a release. We're about to be able to add tasks to a release, and we'll be able to transition the release between phases. Right. This part will be managed by hand, so I'm not worried too much about doing that necessarily. More defining what goes into a release and kind of tracking those things. So once I've got this working, once I've got the attach of tasks, we'll start focusing on the GitHub side of things because I'm really interested to do those pieces, which was basically setting up some hooks. The weird thing there is I'm going to have to create I'm either going to have to create a repo to do testing with, so a dummy repo that I can attach code to and I can attach events to and whatnot to track some of these things. Because I can't be tracking actual tasks through this, otherwise I'll never see the transitions and stuff, right? So I need to be able to do PRs that are kind of silly. So we might create a very simple dummy repo that we can add code into and test with, and then hook that into this application and see the state of those things, so we get the right warnings and stuff. So the idea being that once you add a task, if that task is not in progress yet, then it'll be part of that release, but it'll it won't be available to you. Once PRs and stuff get done, you'll be able to see. Yeah, and we will have rules around the transition. Like if you can't transition to, you can't transition to released if these are in progress. Because yeah, and if you move it to production and there's things that are in progress, etc., it'll warn you that that's not the right thing. So yeah, okay. Well, with that said, I don't see anyone. I'm not dropping into like. I have no one in my list that's streaming anything that would be even remotely attached to what I've done. Unless there are any suggestions, I think I might just end it here. End the stream. Magatron's doing a Tron text-based game to practice C#. So at least doing C#, but not really on task for what we're doing. So I'm just gonna finish up here. Um, 17 people apparently, so I don't want to necessarily take you nowhere. So let's go to me Magatron. She is doing a Tron text-based RPG to practice C#. So let's go over there. I will be back next week. My Wednesday stream did not happen last night. I'm not sure if I can keep that up. I'm trying to get back to karate, so we'll be playing that by ear. Very much so. So, well, yeah. So anyway, I'll be back on Monday next week. Hopefully, I'll have more of this stuff done. And yeah, so thank you for joining me. Have a great rest of your day and a great weekend. I'll see you soon. Take care all. Bye.